I am Iron Man, and with great power comes great responsibility. Just a few iconic lines from the Marvel Cinematic Universe that when we hear them, we can't help but smile. There is a reason Marvel continues to dominate in all areas of media, and it's because of that success they remain on top. What makes a superhero interesting? Is it their power? Is it their origin story? Maybe it's the villains and how they face them. The most important quality a superhero can have is the quality of being relatable. I am here to show you through a mountain of comic books, writers and directors, and a literal lifetime of being a nerd that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the best and why. We all have our favorite superheroes, but what sets Marvel apart from DC? Is it the way Marvel chooses to structure their superpowers of their heroes, as well as their hero story? It's mainly that Marvel puts a good focus on the characters and not the costume. Kevin Feige is the creator of the MCU, and knew when making Marvel movies, it's not always about the icons, the star power, just selling the show. It's about the characters that they play need to be interesting. He grounded the heroes in reality by the way they interact with each other and the worlds they live in. So, like the way Captain America and Iron Man, the superheroes, talk to each other seems real. Captain America refers to Iron Man as Tony Stark, and Stark calls Captain Cap. Like it seems very real, very natural. Same thing with the worlds they live in. Like you can be in outer space on another planet in Guardians of the Galaxy in a market, but it still feels very real, very lived in, very relatable still, even though it's in a completely different environment. Um, so that's another thing. Even though they're superheroes, we see a lot of the not so hero side of things a lot. Um, like they even though they're heroes, they deal with the not so heroic realities of life. Um, that and also the hero role almost seems kind of secondary in a way. It seems like um, and because of that, we can kind of relate as the viewer, like, oh, like we can kind of compare that to like a job or, side work. It's not the main focus all the time. Um, uh, Marvel maintains consistency of viewer appeal compared to their DC counterpart. Spider-Man No Way Home made 1.88 billion in the box office, whereas the new Batman film, The Batman, had only made 600 million. And Spider-Man No Way Home holds a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas The Batman holds an 85%, which isn't a bad score by any means. It's just DC is always in the shadow of its competitor. Um, Marvel has also seen a steady wealth of committed actors, and they're not afraid to recast if like they think like a set of movies isn't going to work for the entire MCU, they'll recast, reshoot, and redo like a section of movies. Marvel also puts forth the effort to ensure us, the viewers, are engaged through action, drama, and comedy, and they do this in a way that is like very, very well done. And whenever DC is seen trying to mimic or imitate those kind of Marvel tropes, um, they if they fail, right, it's like, oh, we see what you tried to do here. It kind of draws away from it's drawing away from the original ideas, right? And you see like a repetition here. And when there's already Marvel who's doing that really well, it doesn't mesh well. Um, DC, however, does a great job at creating titans, um, characters, superheroes that do not lose, that are very strong, and that design in and of itself kind of takes away from the stakes. You know, when Superman's on screen, he's only weak to like one or two things, and you know he's usually not going to lose. So it takes away from the stakes. Like you understand, like the Flash is the fastest, Superman is the strongest. Um, a good example is Superman can be seen like Zeus, like a god, and Spider-Man is seen like Hercules, and Hercules had to like fall from Olympus, live amongst the people, struggle with all of that, being different, struggle with existing, being so strong. And Spider-Man goes through the same kind of struggles, right? He's like, "Oh, I have all this power, but no one understands. Like I can't share this with anybody. It's just his burden." And I feel like that's a really good way to compare DC to Marvel. Um, DC does a good job at making gods. Marvel does a good job at making like myth like folk heroes. Um, Marvel also does a great job of going outside the box with their franchise in better ways than DC. Marvel excels in using subtle connections that paint a bigger picture over the climax and journey of their movies, still making the old movies feel relevant going into new ones. Um, their worlds and characters feel very well connected. They also do a great job at making the party feel dynamic. In the new Spider-Man film, in the trailers, you see Doctor Strange kind of all over the trailers, and um, it's exciting because you're like, oh, cool, this is a Spider-Man movie, but I also get Doctor Strange, and if that's like one of your favorite superheroes, or even if it's not, you're like, oh, cool, it's gonna be like two really epic people working together to like make something happen or like save the world or who knows what's going on. Um, just the idea that there's more heroes adds to the fun. Um, we also see um, we also see the growth of the heroes throughout the journey, right? Or I'm sorry, not the heroes, but the people. You see the growth of like Tony Stark as the movies go on. He's not just always Iron Man all the time. You see him grow as a person. Same thing with like Captain America. You see Cap grow throughout the movies as a person and like have to change and have to adapt as a person, not as a hero, which is very well done, I think, when it comes to making the superheroes relatable. Um, the dawn of the Disney Plus TV shows around the MCU have also been a great success, expanding the MCU even more, and they cost the studio about 200 million per show. Um, the only reason why they're able to do this is because of the prior success of the movie franchise beforehand. Without that success, they wouldn't have been able to fund those shows, and um, yeah, that's just another reason why Marvel kind of is has the edge over DC. Um, Kevin Feige and the MCU stories have been adapted and told in a compelling way for even non-comic book fans to enjoy. That was a quote from Peterson Bryan. Um, and, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has some of the best superhero portrayals our world has ever seen since the dawn of the American superhero in 1938. They are heroes we can share with others, that we can grow with, just as we have seen them grow through the big screen and through our TVs. Marvel continues to help bridge the gap between nerdy and cool, creating relatability and understanding, showing us how the heroes we love so much are flawed at times, just like some of us. But in the end, they still remain epic and heroic. I'm glad I was able to share why Marvel has the best cinematic universe, not only pointing out what makes for good storytelling, but also sharing how Marvel makes their heroes likable. I'm Richard Southard, and I love you 3000.